Thank you, Ms. Connolly. Now I would like to call to order the meeting of the Town Planning Advisory Committee on Monday, May 26th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Before we start the meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We honor and offer gratitude to those ancestors of Mi'kmaq and African descent who came before us to this land. We have the agenda before us. If there is anything the committee wishes to add to the agenda, please let me know. Otherwise, if somebody would like to move to have it approved. Thank you. Ms. Delorier moved and.
I was hoping to make an amendment
Oh,
to the agenda.
okay, sure. Yeah.
Possible?
Councillor Graham.
Would it be possible to move number 7 further up on the agenda wherever it might be appropriate?
So, yeah, we had discussed that. I think maybe, so I think what you're getting at, Councillor Graham, is that there may be some people here in the gallery for one of the applications. Is that why you're wanting to move it forward? While I don't have a problem with doing that, sometimes I'm just a little hesitant to do it anytime there's anybody here, because we do have other people who are here for other projects. So I think in certain circumstances where we have a full gallery that's here for a project, I think that would be appropriate. But this is just step one of that project that I think you're referring to. So I think in this instance, we'll just leave the order as it is, just so that we're not, you know, inconveniencing others for, yeah, okay. Thank you, though. Anything else with respect to the agenda? Okay, so I think Ms. Delorier made a motion to approve the agenda, and I think Councillor McGrath seconded that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary-minded? Oh, thank you. Motion carried. We have two sets of minutes before us, one from May the 5th and one from May the 20th. If there are any revisions which are required for those minutes, please let me know. And if not, if anyone wishes to approve them, we'll do them in order. So the first would be the May 5th, 2025 minutes. Thank you. Ms. Delorier has moved to accept those minutes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Graham. Okay, thank you. The May 20th minutes, that was our special meeting which we had last week at the library. Councillor Graham, you moved? Okay, thanks. Sorry? Yes. Yes, for the 20th. Anybody seconding those? Ms. Delorier? Okay, thanks. I need like a swivel. All right, so thank you. Both of those sets of minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is the application by Aquaba Developments Incorporated at 730 Yonge Street. And I believe we have Mr. Zwicker here to speak to the project. Thank you. You can come down whenever you like. And this is Mr. McPherson's project. And so I will turn the microphone over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Can everyone hear me okay? It's good volume? Okay. So, as you mentioned, this is 730 Yonge Street. It is stage 3 of the application. So, right here we have the subject site. So, of the 91,000 square meter property that you see here towards the top of Yonge Street, the proposed development would use 62,000 square meters of the land there. This land has 795 meters of frontage onto Yonge Street. And this is an excerpt from the town's policy area map that shows that the proposal is within the future growth policy area. And furthermore, this is taken from our zoning map, which shows that the lands are in a few zones. So the future growth, which is in yellow here down in the bottom, as well as urban growth in purple. And finally, there is some that is within the environmental reserve in blue there. So this is a photo of the subject property that was taken a little bit more recently. So as you can see, it's currently undeveloped. This area on Yonge Street has seen pretty significant change over the past 25 years. It's transitioned from a pretty low density residential area to being more of a medium to high density residential area, and this is sort of part of that pattern of densification in that area. And these sort of exist in relation to Victoria Park, which is very nearby, and so there's also some accommodation uses that relate to the park in this area as well. I'm specifically referring to Sikh accommodations, which sort of borders the subject property. This is another photo taken a little bit further down, back in the winter, of the subject property, and another further south. So as you can see, there's not a lot of neighboring development in this area. There is some further down Yonge Street that sort of reflects a more dense residential nature. So as I mentioned, this is at step 3, which is the main community engagement portion. And this is an opportunity for the Planning Advisory Committee to review any changes that were made from step 2, as well as for the public to speak to the proposal before PAC makes a recommendation to council. This is the preliminary site plan. So you just want to note the north arrow on the top left. So this points towards the downtown. So it's not shown like north going up on the map. There is, in this proposal, 3 multi-unit buildings. Those are the ones in blue. And then along the west part of the property, there's a series of 9 stacked townhouses, as well as 7 regular townhouse buildings to the south. And right here towards the middle, there's an existing pond that would be retained as part of this proposal, and you can see some walking trails that are proposed to go in and around that pond. So getting into some more details of the proposal. So the height of the buildings in all vary from 2 to 4 stories. The total number of units is 287. The mix would be 3 4-story multi-unit buildings. Those are the ones in blue. And then 16 townhouses in total. The lot coverage is 27%. The parking would be, and this is different from the report, I will note, 332 parking spaces with a mix of above and below grade parking. The parking ratio comes out to 1.15, which I will again mention is different from what is shown on the report. Previously, it was 0.9 the last time that it was shown to the PAC. And then the amenity space would be 9,430 square meters. And this is mainly to do with the pond walking trail area. And next up, we have a breakdown of the units. So there's 10 bachelor, and this is, I would just want to note as well, this is a preliminary breakdown of the units. So it is sort of waiting on a final count that will happen once some more sort of like market review is done. This is what I've heard from the applicant. But the preliminary breakdown would be 10 bachelor, 108 one-bedroom units, 86 two-bedroom units, and 83 three-bedroom units. And you can see an approximate square footage for those units there. So that comes out to 287. This is a rendering. It shows a view from the street, looking west, and you can see the existing pond there that would be connected by some walking trails. This is a rendering of some of the townhouses. And then finally, this is an aerial view that shows a rendering of the full subject property. So policy UG35 is the policy that enables council to consider this proposal by the development agreement criteria. And one important policy to note is the South End Future Growth Conceptual Plan. So this is really the this is really what sets up the development to be the way that it is. This growth area was created as a part of the plan review for Truro's 2023 plan. And the purpose of this plan area is to encourage planned growth through a mixture of different residential densities in this part of town, with some sort of proposed roads along the way. And so we can see the subject property here, right here specifically, highlighted. And so you can see that it lies along what would eventually become a road that would provide connectivity to additional growth in this area. So planning staff have reviewed the proposal based on the applicable policies that are found in the town's planning documents. And the overall proposal does do a good job of providing a mixture of residential densities in the aforementioned growth area, while also providing open space as well. There were some policies that conflict with the proposal, and specifically these are the ones that relate to walkability. This is an area of town that is not really developed much at all. It sort of represents an extension of the town's normal sort of areas that you would consider to be developed. And so it also represents an extension of infrastructure. A lot of these policies speak to the word sprawl. In this case, this is an extension of infrastructure that the town is actually looking to accommodate. It is looking to provide growth in these areas, so long as that growth can be dense enough that it justifies its own existence. So, this is the sort of mixed-use, multi-unit development that can actually justify, expanding your services out. And so it's something for PAC to consider. Another thing that came up was the number of parking spaces. So I will get to it, but this proposal does lie under what would normally be a permitted requirement for parking spaces if this was permitted as of right. So as I mentioned, the proposal has parking for 332 vehicles, and the normal requirement for parking would be 413, so it's just 81 parking stalls shy of the normal requirement. And this proposal is quite far away from existing amenities, so things like grocery stores, services, things of that nature are far enough away that in order to access them, it would probably require, rely on the use of, in most cases, an automobile. There isn't a lot of existing things like sidewalks that connect this area. So with that being said, this is something that can be considered against the idea that this is an area of Truro that is expected to grow. And so it's possible that services could potentially locate around this area to capture business as growth continues. And so it's sort of a consideration of balancing what could be in this area versus what's there now. So as I said, it's quite far away from some amenities, but it's worth considering what could develop in the future. In terms of the servicing and required infrastructure, there is not a servicing plan that's considered as a part of this proposal currently, and the town's engineer office did request that the applicant submit a servicing plan for approval, and it also doesn't include a stormwater management plan, and again, the town engineer's office has requested that the applicant submit a stormwater management plan. Oh, okay. This was just a note that existing water and sewer are already on Yonge Street. So when I'm talking about an expansion of services, I'm not necessarily talking about central services like water and sewer. I'm talking about things like sidewalks and things of those nature. So I just wanted to add that comment. This is the traffic impact that I was on. So it would be connected through, there's a series of connections that are made off of Yonge Street. And at this time, the traffic authority hasn't identified any issues regarding traffic. In terms of the height, it meets all the requirements for height in this zone. The proposal also aligns with some of the town's policies that haven't been mentioned so far, mainly ones that surround having a mix of residential development types, provision of outdoor amenity space, and the application of sustainable and energy efficient design principles. So as an example, there's shown on some of the renderings that they're going to use solar panels. So, it's something that I wanted to consider as part of this review. This was sent out to all of the town's departments for feedback, And some of the feedback that's come in initially, we haven't received feedback from every department yet, highlights the need to ensure that there's water pressure available for firefighting. This has already been relayed to the applicant. As well as in terms of building code, the separation distances between neighboring structures and also lot lines, just to ensure that, if those distances are low enough, it could activate some requirements from the building code that would do things like set a minimum, or I guess a maximum number of openings and things like windows that you could have on the buildings. From the public participation, there was one negative response total. The response spoke generally to the increasing rate of development in the town, and sort of saw this as, one additional large development in the town, so it took a negative outlook. In terms of public participation, a development application sign was posted on May 16th. After this meeting, information will be posted on the town's website, and a mail-out was sent to 9 property owners, over 30 properties, within 150 meters of the subject lands on May 14th. In terms of next step, step 4 is the public hearing and decision by council. So the PAC will make a recommendation to council, and a finalized concept will be provided to council for their final decision before step 5. And this is staff's recommendation, which is to approve the application for 730 Yonge Street. And that concludes my presentation. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. Mr. Zwicker, would you like to come down to the? Okay, just so you know, there may be some comments from people in the gallery. So if you are asked to speak or wish to speak, a microphone would be great, just so we catch you on the recording. Okay. Don't have anyone in the queue yet, but okay, there we go. All right, Councillor Graham, you're first.
I was wondering if you could go back to the slide where it talks about the survey results that you had. Did you mention there were 9 surveys mailed out? Did you say that?
Yes, so it has to do with, there were 30 properties that were within the area, but there were some duplicates where multiple properties were owned by one person. So the number of mailouts that were actually delivered was 9 total, but the number of properties that were within the area was 30.
So in our package here, not that it really makes a huge difference, but it says the mail out went to 56 property owners.
Yeah, I think that the one in this presentation is the one that's accurate. I got an update
Okay.
regarding that, so yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
You have a few points. I'll start with lighting. Your neighbors have a business, and it's a wilderness accommodation business. And so lighting is very important in regards to this project. I see this as a critical aspect to this project, and I would like to see it written into the development agreement, that you have hooded lighting, not just downward directional lighting, but hooded lighting. And I would even personally would request that you submit the kind of fixtures that you're proposing. There can't be any light really escaping from this other than reflected off the ground or whatever, but no visual light appearing. So the height of the lights is important. Their hoodedness is important. That's important to me because I think that we've okayed a business next door that is a wilderness experience, and so that's important, I believe. So that's something that I'd like you to take very seriously going forward. That's one request I have. Another request I have is for landscaping. Again, if we just take the slides back to the rendering. Yeah, the full scale, as the crow flies rendering. You can see that along Yonge Street there's no trees or anything. And I know it's just a rendering, but what I'm going to suggest to you is that there needs to be trees all along Yonge Street. I believe that there needs to be some sort of barrier there, you know. I just like to see a barrier there as well, because of the sensitivity to the neighbors, and the park is there, et cetera. I would like to see a detailed landscape plan, and I would like to see it written as well into the agreement. I'd like to see this go to the urban forester, and who specializes in urban forest management, and it be screened by that person, and recommendations made as according to species that are suitable for the project and where they could be planted. I think that that's important. And the renderings, I'm not happy with not receiving any renderings in my package. You know, one of the things, as I sit on council, is the attractiveness of this project. It's, you know, just, is it pleasing to look at? And we have policies in that regard, and I can't make that judgment. You know, all I see is just flash in front of me. I really, you know, we're supposed to consider cladding. We're supposed to consider the appearance of the building. And to me, the application is incomplete as a committee member for me to look at it at this stage, and I'm disappointed that I don't have renderings. Your renderings that are here, for instance, in this, as the crow flies, is different than the renderings that you have in previous slides, is what the buildings might look like. So it's very unclear as to what these buildings will look like, and aesthetically, they need to be aesthetically pleasing. I can't make a judgment on that without seeing them. So I would ask, you know, for whatever reason, you haven't got to that point perhaps, and so it draws me to wondering about the seriousness of the project going forward. You know, how much time is invested in preparing the package so that I can make a proper assessment. Yeah. So I think you've heard that. The other thing is what I noticed, are there sidewalks within the project itself? It's a large project. You have a pond in the middle, that's a recreational area. And I'm just asking, are there sidewalks in the roads within the project? It doesn't appear that there are. Will you be putting sidewalks in? Sure.
So thank you. As far as sidewalks go, the U-shaped road around the lake will be a public street, so we'll have to meet your public street standard for that.
Okay.
The smaller ones going in on the bottom of the screen are private driveways into those rows of townhouses. Probably not sidewalks there. That's only going into it's like 16 unit kind of thing. So those would just be private driveways on private property. But your engineer probably could answer the question. As far as the public street goes, yeah, we'll probably have to do something there.
Does the engineer want to comment on that? Whether there's a need for sidewalks within the development or not, where one of them will be a public road?
We try to cut down on the number of sidewalks. I mean, if it's a local residential street with, I'm not sure how many units, but if it's a local residential street and it's safe to walk on the streets, we would be fine with that. But we also, we do have a definition where we want sidewalks on one side only on local collector streets, but a local street, not necessarily. We can leave that as part of the traffic study.
Okay, I think that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up as a possible issue. Last is parking. I can't get my head around the fact that it's 81 spaces short of what's required, and the fact that it's on the outskirts of town. It's really on the outskirts of town, and it's up a large hill, and it's not really suitable to walk to town and back unless you're quite athletic, particularly if you're trying to carry groceries or anything. I see that as a problem. I've already mentioned it before, and I know I don't want to see the ground all paved either. You know what I mean, right? Nobody wants to see a development that has no green space. It's all paved with parking. It's very unattractive. So it brings us to a problem. You know, I'll just bring it to the attention of the committee, because I bring up parking quite a bit, and a lot of people kind of, they throw their eyes up and say, oh, he's going to talk about parking again. And yes, I'm going to talk about parking again. Do you know, since 2017, there are 100,000 more licensed vehicles in the province, from 600,000 to 700,000. Now, to be fair, a lot of those are trailers, et cetera, because following COVID, there was a large number of people that went out or during COVID and bought themselves a trailer or whatever. Then I looked into the stats of how many actual vehicles there are increased in the last 2 years. There's 10,000 5,000 in 2023, and another 5,000 in 2024. That's 10,000 vehicles more in the province, and these are light trucks and passenger vehicles. These aren't heavy trucks or anything. These are just for getting people around. So in the last 2 years, we've looked at 10,000, 5,000 a year. And so, it's a dream. Of course, we don't want to see the province covered in cars, et cetera, and parking, et cetera. But the reality is that we're getting more cars in the province, not less cars in the province, and that it's increasing kind of at an alarming rate. And so, this whole idea of, well, let's shrink the parking and people can walk. They don't want to walk. Let's shrink the parking and put them in public transport. There is no public transport in town. I'm just saying is that, I requested this before in this project that there be some plan B. I hate a plan B because, right? And if the project works with 81 missing parking spaces relative to the bylaws, well, good on the project, but I worry about that,
Yeah, we understand that.
right. And so what's your plan?
Well, it's a struggle here. So we can easily put 81 more stalls on there. You're right. It will cover essentially most of the green space. If you look like those two L-shaped buildings, that parking lot between there is 61 stalls. So if we're gonna get 81, it's a parking lot bigger, another 20 stalls bigger than that. I could put it in there, but we're trying to balance off the stormwater, nature, preserving some sort of trees, and trying to land this around 1.15, 1.2 per unit. We already have underground parking under all three multis. The 1.5 is a high number to meet. I understand completely about we're still a car society. I don't fully know how to answer it. My answer last time to you was I could draw in sort of a temporary or a plan B lot, and if it's not enough, we could trigger that or develop that. But our client does not want to pave the whole site for the sake of.
Yeah, and I don't want to see it. You know that too, right? I'm
Yeah.
in the same, predicament as you're in.
Yeah.
And,
I
and
understand
so,
that.
you're the developer or you're the architect, are you, of the site?
Yeah, well, we're the planning.
The planning,
firm, yeah.
okay, well, if you're the planner, the thing is what's gonna happen once you have full occupancy, right? And there's extra cars. I mean, there's no, I guess they park along your streets there, I guess.
They could use the private driveways into those yellow ones for sure, for additional spaces. We could put a little lot in there for 5 or 10. We could piece it up a little bit like that. The other thing, our client is also partnering with S2E. I mentioned them last time from an environmental perspective. So they also partner with car sharing companies to bring car sharing into the site. So not every single person has to own a vehicle. There could be 2 or 3 community vehicles there that are available for several houses to use. So that helps bring the requirement down.
Right.
Will it remove 81 stalls? Honestly, I think 1.5 is just a bit high.
Is that
for
right? You
what
feel
we're
as though it's
seeking.
high?
Yeah, I think your ratio is high for what you're requiring, but
Okay, well, that's a reasonable comment then. And your experience is based on what? Is it based on
We're doing-
other developments that you've done where
Yep.
there is public transport or no public transport?
so in urban environments, we're down at 0.65, 0.75. That's not here. That's not even 1 stall per unit. Suburban sites in and around the city, we usually do 1-to-1 underground or neighbor to the building, and then we might go 0.25 surface for vehicles. So a lot of the master plan communities you see around Dartmouth, Cole Harbour, Bedford, 1.25. That includes their visitor parking and their Uber parking and their delivery. So 1.5 as a baseline is high. I mean, it might be a study you want to do to take a look at what's coming along and where you're going with your numbers.
Right.
It's a high number to meet, and it comes with cost. Dollars, land, trees, green space, runoff,
Right.
stormwater.
But with that said, you know, if you live there, you need a place to put your car,
100%. Yeah.
right?
I think it may be a good idea to go off a couple of those spots there and put in a little bit of an overflow as a phase B or a plan B. If we get there and it's needed, put in 10 there, put in 10 there, put 10 over there, so we have the spot ready for it, rather than start out of the gate and pave all that.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
No,
But-
I
but
don't
that's
think
why
it's right.
That's why I'm thinking of where are you thinking when it comes to
Yeah.
a Plan B?
And
Because I
may-
also don't want to see cars all over Young Street.
And maybe it's just a gravel lot, so you still have some permeability for stormwater and servicing, but it's all cost.
Right.
I mean, we'll take some direction on where you think it should go.
Right.
Deputy Mayor Thomas, if I can sort of just get into this. You mentioned you don't want cars parked all over Young Street. Is that a possibility? I would expect that would be like a no parking part of Young Street, would it not be, Mr. McKinnon?
It could be designed to accommodate parking. Right now, I mean, it's a nice straight stretch of road. It's kind of a rural piece of our street network right now, but it is only a 50-kilometer zone. Parking could be accommodated with the right design.
I don't know whether that's what anyone wants, but I was just, that may detract from things. But your concern, like, I get if we're downtown and we're concerned that residents who don't have enough spaces are going to start parking in business lots and really disrupting things. But in my opinion, and I could be absolutely wrong, but if this place doesn't have a spot for me and it's a requirement that I have a vehicle, then I'm not going to rent there. So I just, sometimes I don't know necessarily that we need to take the extra step of, you know, I hear the applicant's concerns about paving this entire property, and I like the trees and the green space. So I just want to understand what we think is going to be the worst outcome if the parking ratio isn't high enough. Sure. Sorry. Where are you?
I just wanted to comment that while Mr. Thomas is certainly the most vocal member of our Planning Advisory Committee, he is just one member. And I, as an equal member on this committee, am perfectly satisfied with the ratio of 1.26 per. I much prefer there being green space there.
We'll take the direction from the committee. If you think it needs to go up or down, tell us what to hit, and we'll make the plan work.
I guess what I'm suggesting is that, you know, and we talked about this last time, is that it stay the way it is, but I just voicing my concern is that it might not be sufficient.
Okay.
And, you know, I can't see you as a developer or an owner of the property saying, okay, well, you know, we've got more vehicles and we have parking and you can't rent places because you don't have enough parking. You're going to end up putting more parking in
Right.
to meet those demands. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I want to make sure that I'm looking at a project, you know, the way that it's going to look, rather than, you know, I'm looking at some, you know, beautifully landscaped project, et cetera, and then now there's not enough parking and you're putting parking in where, you know, it was going to be nice recreational green areas. Do you follow me, right? I'm trying to be responsible in my approach, rather than just,
We understand that.
yeah.
I mean, the new public street, the sort of U-shaped one around the pond, that would certainly be available as well for on-street parking, if we get to the point where it's needed. Around there be plenty of spaces in front of units or in front of those apartment buildings. We agree, we don't want a project that doesn't work or doesn't make sense.
Right.
So we have to get to a point that's the right answer and the right solution for the project. We've put this forward thinking this is a viable scenario as it's presented. If you'd like us to do more, then just tell us.
Right.
And presumably the ratios are off on the large buildings as opposed to the townhouses and
Yeah, the smaller apartments, you're, so the way it works, those red buildings or pink buildings are stacked townhouses, so 2 units, 2 cars. The yellow ones are single family or single townhouses, also 2 cars. So if you're a single family, you want the whole townhouse to yourself, you park one behind the other, so you get 2 cars per unit in that one. You go to the 1 bedroom or a bachelor in the apartment building, you're only getting your one. You're not getting an additional stall for that one.
Right.
So we're trying to, across the spectrum in units, in parking, in sizing, and affordability. If you're the 2-car family, you need to go to one of those yellow townhouses to guarantee yourself those 2 stalls.
So, Mr. Fox, can I ask you a question in regards to, you know, how we can approach this in a responsible manner? In other words, we've made several decisions in regards to approving projects that have below what we have called for within the bylaws for parking. And I was wondering, is it in some way, can we go back to visit those projects after 2 years or whatever and get a feel for whether or not there's sufficient parking on these sites, or maybe there's too much parking on these sites and we don't need as much as being suggested. We don't need the level of parking that that we've been asking for. You know, I would like more information is what I'm getting at. And I think we've approved projects with less than, you know, what we require for parking in quite a few instances, and I'd like to know how that's working out.
So I think, Councillor, all through plan review, and I think you've been repeatedly told by me to you that we've been asking for too much parking, and I know you were the driver behind the 1.5 spaces per and maintaining that ratio. And I've never been in favor of that high of a ratio. It drives up costs of development. It does all the things we're talking about here, which is reduces green space. You know, we're trying to do affordable housing. That's on one hand, we're saying that. And on the other hand, we're saying you're going to have to build all these parking spaces, which just increases the cost of development. So I've never been a proponent of the parking requirements we currently have. So I don't know if you're going to, like, if you want me to go out and investigate all the existing developments, we can certainly have a look and see. But I'm going to tell you that from what we're hearing from the developers themselves is that they're building too much parking. And that I fully expect that's going to be the result of any kind of investigation we do. But if we want to,
Well, it would be really good to know that. That would be really good information to know that, so that we can make responsible decisions on the committee.
And true, but we've heard repeatedly from the developers that they've told us, this committee, that they have empty parking spaces on their development, and they're coming in asking for second buildings or third buildings, and we keep hearing over and over again, we don't need this much parking. So I'm not sure what evidence you're looking for. We can go out and do parking counts and expend staff time to do that, but I think we've heard repeatedly from the developers themselves that there's more parking than being provided than is needed.
Well then, Mr. Fox, I think then we need to look at the requirements that we're asking for and maybe amend those so that people are meeting the requirements.
I believe HRM did a parking study at a great expense several years ago now, probably. We can certainly do that. I'm just not sure it's something we want to spend that kind of money on, but it's something we can do and look at and come back with recommendations on what the parking requirements should be.
At the very least, I would like to track this project, and I'd like to know, you know, where you're at. When the project is complete and you have 100% occupancy, you know, where are you at with the vehicles relative to parking spaces? That would be of real interest to me.
We're happy to do that and track it as it goes, and if it's becoming a problem, we'll come here and we'll talk to you and we'll figure out a solution for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Zwicker, for being here with us this evening. I'm going to talk a little bit about parking. I would love to see less. So we've got 3 different opinions from 3 councillors sitting on this committee this evening. Fun times. But that is, I think, the best case scenario. We have various viewpoints, and between all the various viewpoints, we get to somewhere where we're going to be. Speaking on developments, rather than spending some staff time on investigating, you have, I would assume, experience with many developments in town. Are you having with those other developments that feedback that there's too much parking?
Yep.
Yeah.
All
And-
our suburban projects like this are about 1.25 is what
Yeah.
we're drawing them at.
And I will anecdotally say there's a development, I don't know, a couple of years old here in downtown. I've spent a lot of time downtown. I pass by this one every now and then and just take a look, because I passed by it a few times. The parking lot was always empty, so I started paying attention. Different times of the day, different days of the week. I've never seen more than 2 vehicles parked in there, and they've got room for about 16. That sounds like it could be a lot more units. We could be housing a lot more people. You mentioned car share. That was something that I suggested, I think, your first time here, and I saw you quickly write down that note, so I'm glad that that feedback was taken. And you mentioned your sustainability consultant is talking about car share. Is that likely to be a possibility?
So it's S2E is coming in as a partner in the project now and advising on all the environmental and sustainability elements. That's where the solar piece is coming from. That's where the stormwater plan is directing. That's where tree maintenance, but also the car share. The other piece of that is affordability in that different housing types. So they bring the full spectrum. So car share is in all of their other projects. I would expect that we can bring it here. How many? I don't really know.
Yeah, it's something I bring up to pretty much every developer. If I haven't brought it up to a developer, it's probably because it slipped my mind at that time.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important because, again, well, this committee is the planning advisory. So we're looking into the future, hopefully, and I'm certainly looking into the future. And I think a lot of the decisions that get made in these chambers, I don't know if even I'll live to see the full effect of all of them. But it's sort of that saying that, you know, you plant a tree whose shade you don't ever plan to sit under. We look to the future and making things better. Thinking of expanding the parking on that public street. You said we could have street parking on there.
Sure.
Thinking of the future, I'm hoping we won't need it. But if we do, it's going to need sidewalks. You cannot have street parking or on-street parking and expect people to be walking also in that street. That's just not safe. So that's something to keep in mind. In addition to the street parking on Yonge Street that the town engineer indicates could be accommodated, I would have to say that is in stark contrast with what we've heard about trying to cut down on the light and noise from this development. You know, with the hooded lights, and I mentioned to, I believe you're, Mr. Wallace, I think it was, who was here last time. I said, you know, about putting in some tree buffer. Well, what is the point of the hooded lights and the tree buffer if you're then going to have on-street parking all along there? That doesn't really fit with where we're trying to go. So I would hope that my committee members would consider that as well if we are thinking about trying to do any on-street parking on Yonge Street. What else did I have? There's, Mr. McPherson, this was your project. There was an earlier slide showing the various zones, like the environmental reserves. That's the one. If I'm not mistaken, the environmental reserve area there abutting that UG text, that is your pond with the walking trail, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So that would mean that the environmental reserve area just to the north of that would be directly underneath one of your buildings. Is that also correct?
The property above?
The property above, is that part of?
There's no pond there.
It is showing as environmental reserve, though. Am I mistaken?
Sorry, so I think this this blue area here is a different shade from the slightly darker blue. So this is the ER zone, but this just represents a body of water within the UG zone.
Okay, so that body of water directly above the text of UG.
This one?
Nope, up above.
This one.
That one, thank you.
Yeah.
And just, well, first of all, let's make sure I'm correct on this. That is part of the subject properties, correct?
Yeah.
And that is where the buildings would be. So there is a body of water there where we are planning to build, no?
It's on your mapping. There, you can go, there's no water there.
Okay. Are we sure of that, Mr. McPherson?
I haven't seen, I can't confirm or deny at this time. Certainly check it out and get back to you.
Yeah, let's do that. I might make a quick stop up there myself, but you'll probably be more familiar with the actual.
We sent a
layout.
wetland delineator out there to walk the whole site to see what was going on and confirm what was water, what was not. the piece below where it says subject property, there's no water there either. There is some wet area, sort of soil, but it's not ponds like your mapping shows here.
It's more of a, not even a bog, just a low point where some water collects on occasion and then drains out.
Right.
Okay, that makes me a little bit happier. The affordability, and this is again, of course, going to be related to the parking, what Director Fox had mentioned about, when we add a lot of things like the underground parking, it increases the costs. Where are we looking at for affordability of these buildings and these units? Is there going to be a mix of market rates? I know we're going to have a mix of unit types.
Yes, mix of types, mix of rates. CMHC funding requires 10% below market. Exactly where, I'm not sure yet, but if this is financed through CMHC, you have to meet that requirement to access their funds. So 10% of that total will be in the CMHC category.
Okay, excellent to hear. And then a question either for you, Mr. Zwicker, or perhaps for Director Fox, whoever feels more comfortable to answer it. Mr. McPherson, could we go back to that overhead view of the development, please? That one will do, yes, thank you very much. So the U-shape to the top right is a public street, and you mentioned the bottom left there is private driveways.
Yes.
Are there any long-term plans, given the zoning of this area, that would see those private drives extended further down, or is our only connecting point going to be the shared road with the other development that we've talked about here before, sort of at the very north end? Is that our only connector down into the other lands?
There's quite a ravine that runs along the back of the property there, so there's limited options for connections through, and there's no requirement to actually, I shouldn't say ravine, quite a water course that runs along the back of the property. But we won't be looking at any other extensions through except for the point that's been shown further down.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And this one's definitely for you, Director Fox, that when we talk about the walkability score for this area and the distance from amenities such as shopping, groceries, etc., and I've mentioned this before, I am an avid cyclist and I do things by bike. Even when I have a car, I try it just to show that it's possible. And I don't know that I'm getting my groceries every day if I'm living up there. Do we have any plans in that future growth area for services, for commercial services? Is there a chance for either a major grocery chain or a smaller grocery chain like Avery's or the East End Mini Mart, so to be able to set up in there and make it a more walkable area that does not require motor vehicles?
So the future growth area doesn't set aside any land, doesn't presume to set aside any land for retail uses. It's not to say that it can't happen, because it would accommodate that. I guess the reality is in this market, retail is challenging, and to dictate that a certain percentage of land or lands be set aside for that is probably not, it's not going to happen. It would be more market driven. So with allowing that to happen through the future growth area zone and policy area would allow for future retail development should demand call for it. But to sort of predetermine where it's going to be would probably be a difficult thing to do, and to assume what the market's going to be as well.
Right, so we don't have specific land set aside for that commercial, but it is possible in that zone.
Yes, it is.
Perfect, that is all I'm looking for. And then finally, we get to public transit, and I know I hear people talking about the need for public transit, especially to help service sites like this. And there is a joint feasibility study being done by the town and county right now, so I'm hoping that the folks on this committee who have that voice will help me fight for public transit so that we can reduce the unsightly parking that we're trying to reduce at these developments.
Yeah, bring it. It's one of the first things we look for if we can get transit up here.
Final question for you, Mr. Zwicker. Snow storage. Climate change is coming, the planet is warming, but we still have winters, and obviously a lot of the climate change is just that there's no predictability. We have hot summers, we have wet summers, we've had very snowy winters and had winters with almost none. At some point, you're going to get a blizzard, and we're going to have to put some snow somewhere. Do you have room to put the snow from all of the paved areas?
We thought about that. We thought the 2 private driveways at the bottom, that space off the end, there's lots of room there, just almost to go straight in, so we're not too worried about those. All the units are also, like those yellow units are about probably almost 30, 40 feet back from the curb, so there's big front yards there. The areas around the multis, we think we're gonna push off the end, so the small multis got space below it. The 2 Ls, if we're gonna think about a dedicated space, it's probably there. If not, we're just gonna go straight forward, kind of towards the green space, but we could look at dedicating something in there where we back it up or stack it up. That one spot may need something.
Okay, it's something that we definitely need to be considering living in this region. Snow is a reality. I will echo Deputy Mayor Thomas's concerns about not having some great renderings to see what this really looks like, and again, the landscaping between Yonge Street and the development to try to cut down on some of the noise and the light. Not as the only solution, because again, we live where we live, we're getting more hurricanes, and those trees might not be there. We still need those hooded lights and such to help, but sort of as a plan B, I guess.
We will advance the landscape plan and bring that along with the process. The other thing, from a landscaping perspective, the trees that are there are far better than anything you can plant. So preserving what's there and trying to set back, those trees are already probably 20, 30 years old, as opposed to putting sticks in the ground that are this high. So any sort of no-cut buffers or places we can tape off and stay out of there will be much better buffer and has been proven to withstand hurricanes. So
Yeah.
I would say look for that, some sort of preservation or retention of existing, more so than a planting plan. It will last longer, it will do a better job.
Yeah, some definite marking of the trees to ensure that they are not taken by accident
Sure.
by whatever crews are working. That would certainly be appreciated. Finally, for any of the planning department, our package indicates there was no comment from the traffic authority, the urban forester, the town engineer, or CCRCE. When do we expect those comments, and do we want those comments before we pass this recommendation to council?
Well, yeah, so there wasn't a great amount of time that was provided for comments to come in, so I think that, the normal time, I've done 1 application so far, 201 callback. Those comments came in between, 1 and 2 weeks from the time of asking, so it may be another week or so before we get the full sets of comments in.
Okay, I would ask my fellow committee members to consider whether or not we want to wait for that feedback before making the recommendation, or if we want to pass it to council and hope that information is available for the public
I
hearing.
can also add,
Yes, sir.
through the chair, that the traffic authority and the town engineer is present. So we don't generally get a lot of feedback from the school board or the regional center for education. They usually just basically want to know for planning purposes on their end. They don't generally have any negative comments or any constructive criticism or things like that. But perhaps Mr. McKinnon would be prepared to comment if there's any concerns generally with respect to traffic or servicing.
I hate to put him on the spot, but if he's prepared to comment, I welcome those comments.
Generally don't have any concerns. There's other staff that's looking at it though, and they will have the comments, but yeah, water, they already know what our concerns are. Sewer capacity, we've no issues with sewer capacity. The sewer system in that area was purpose-built for development, and currently our sewer flows are about 50% of what they were 20 to 30 years ago. So we're just not really expecting any kind of issues with sewer capacity in our system anywhere in town.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Laurier, thank you for your patience.
No worries. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Swicker, I just have 2 quick questions. The first one is, and I believe I asked this in the last meeting as well, the amenity pond will be accessible to the public or will be private to residents? That's my first question. And the second one is, has a phasing plan been discussed? How will the construction be managed to reduce disruption over time?
So the pond's not gonna be fenced off, it's gonna be there on the side of a public road, it has frontage on a public road. People are free to use it.
Okay.
So I don't think there'll be an issue with that. Phasing plan, we're working on it, because servicing has to get extended from one direction, so that's probably where you would start. We'd also like to get some of each unit on stream at the same time, so it's not all the towns or all the multis. We'd like to try to get some on both ends. It needs, I don't have a phasing plan to show you. We have some ideas on how to do it. We can prepare that and bring it forward to council. It's kind of an engineering question about where we hook on and where we extend from.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if it
It's a
has
good
been
question.
discounts.
I
Yes,
don't have a great answer for you.
Okay. no worries. Thank you.
Councillor Graham?
Again, two questions through you, Madam Chair, to our developer or to our planner. I really want to approve this project, but there were two questions that Councillor Thomas brought up. The one, and I'm not sure that you answered the first one being about putting more trees along Yonge Street. Is that going to be part of what you plan to do? Because I think it is important
Yeah,
for the extent.
I tried to answer that by saying the trees that are there are thicker and better and already grown.
Yes.
If we can put up a bit of a no cutting or preservation of that, it's better than any little stick piddly plants we're gonna put in, so,
I understand, but it's along Yonge Street.
yeah. There is no planting up where the pond is, you can see that from the road, there are no trees there today.
No, there
So if
aren't.
there was going to be a planting, it would be kind of blocking the pond from the road up that section. Everything to the bottom of that screen is pretty grown in thick forest now.
Oh, I understand now. So it will have trees because you're just not showing them?
No,
I'm sorry, am I
I'm trying
not
to say-
getting this?
Trying to say we should keep what's there rather than,
Well, I'd like to add to what's there.
okay, sure.
Is that what you were getting at, Councillor Thomas? Yeah.
Okay.
And are we getting to what you were suggesting?
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is that he work with the urban forester in the town. We have someone who specializes in this,
Okay,
and I'd like to see him work with that individual
okay,
in order to, in order to landscape it properly and make sure that there's a barrier of some sort
okay.
between this property and the road.
Yes,
as far as
and I
light
agree that-
and sound, et cetera, because of the fact that the neighbor has a business orientated towards, a wilderness accommodation. And I think it just, in planning this project, I think it's important to have some sort of sensitivity towards that.
So have we achieved that goal?
Well,
do you
as
think?
long as it goes in, what I've requested is that this project go to the Urban Forest Committee, but specifically to the urban forest specialist that works for the town for comments. And he will also comment on retaining trees as well. You can't just say, I'm gonna retain a tree and then drive over its root system, because you'll kill it.
Right.
And so there needs to be a plan in place to retain trees and properly train them so that they don't die 3 years after the project is finished. So there's a whole process, and the town does have that expertise, and I'm just asking that we lean on that expertise on this project.
There's two ways to do that. You write it in a criteria of the development agreement that it has to be done before anything's approved, or you email me his details or their details, and I go to a meeting next week and just try to get ahead of it before the next council meeting. We'll happily do that.
Okay. What is your suggestion, Mr. McPherson? Do you have one, how we proceed to ensure that that is happening? Should we have it written into the agreement, or what do you suggest here? Or
So I'll take that one. So typically what we can do, or what we have done, is put a requirement in the agreement that a landscaping plan be developed in consultation with the town's urban forestry technician.
Okay, and that should achieve what we're talking about here?
That's how we've been dealing with it to this point, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I didn't quite catch it the first time you explained it. The second one is with regard, again, to Councillor Thomas's comments regarding the renderings. They really are quite scant. Again, looking for direction maybe from our Director of Planning as to some reassurance or how I can get to a comfortable spot that these aren't going to look just like salt boxes or whatever
Right,
they
so
are.
the scale of development here, typically, like, the reason we're doing a development agreement for these lands and not allowing them to go as of right was to deal with things like transportation network, road access, green space connections, that type of thing. That's the level of detail we should be concerned about, because that's what the future growth zone is intended to do. It's not intended to do a development agreement so that this committee or council or anyone else can dictate materials of construction, design, of the buildings, architectural details. That was never the intent. It is something you can consider. It's not really supported by policy. It's a finer level of detail than development agreements were ever designed to do in the future growth policy area. This is not like a downtown development where we're looking at fit for the streetscape, architectural controls to make sure that it's compatible with neighboring properties. There is nothing around here except for like the businesses across the street, and architectural compatibility is not really the concern here. So this is really about how it fits into the town's grander plans, not specific details like architectural design.
Okay, thank you for the clarification there.
So, Mr. Fox, can you speak to UG 10 and UG 11 and how it and why we have a policy for ethically pleasing development?
Is it UG 10 or is it FG? Is
It's
it urban
UG
growth?
10 and UG 11, I believe.
Yeah,
has
it
to
would
do
be
with-
when you're dealing with development that is tied into an existing streetscape. That's your primary concern.
Okay, well, it was
And-
in the report as a issue, so I brought it up, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is in the report, and it has to do with this sort of lying in the future growth and the urban growth at the same time. But you know, Mr. Fox does bring up a good point about the main factor being this growth area.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. So we've had lots of discussion, and I have made note of a few things that we have discussed. Just in case the committee wishes to drill down on any of these, which I think Councillor Graham started to do a little bit. So we've got the parking we've discussed, the lighting, specifically that the lighting be limited to the property that the project is on. Consultation with the urban forester and specifically a landscape plan, the car sharing, sidewalk and curb on the public street within the development. And then the discussion about renderings has taken place, but I think that has kind of been resolved just recently with respect to the future growth requirements. So we will get to speaking with people in the gallery if anybody wishes to speak. But what I'm asking the committee now on is whether we would like to amend or add to the language that was provided to us by staff regarding the proposal, specifically as it relates to those items that I just mentioned. For example, if you wish for there to be a landscape plan before the project goes to council, if you wish for there to be a lighting plan, and if you wish for there to be a sidewalk or a curb on the U-shaped street, if parking is permitted. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am interested in amending the language to, yes, include that there be a landscaping plan that is reviewed and approved by the town's urban forester. I also would like to see updated renderings showing those existing trees. Mr. Zwicker mentioned the existing trees that are there, but we don't see them in the rendering. I think it would be very important to see those renderings before it comes to a public hearing, or at least have them for the public hearing. And also, I do think that we would want to add language. I'm not sure exactly how we would want to word it. Deputy Mayor Thomas may want to weigh in on that, but definitely we want some sort of lighting plan to ensure that we are cutting down on the amount of light pollution that may be escaping to the wilderness area across the street.
Oh, I think you turned yourself off.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, well, we can add to the recommendation. I'm not of the opinion that the renderings need to be resubmitted with respect to the trees. I kind of feel like as long as there is some consultation with the urban forester, that the developer can just sort of, take that advice and that plan. But if others feel strongly about a resubmission of renderings, we can add that language in. But otherwise, I think as long as there's a landscape plan and what would we refer to a lighting plan? Okay. Okay, so I think at this point, we could revise the recommendation to add that provided in advance of the application being submitted to council, that a lighting plan and a landscape plan be developed and provided to staff. Okay? Any other discussion on that, or would we like to ask if anybody from the gallery wishes to speak on the project? Hearing none, I will ask Angela if you would mind handing the microphone to anybody who wishes to speak. Ms. Carney. Yes, I won't be long. Just wait for the mic.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so I had a couple of points. I probably spend the most amount of time up there than anybody in here, so I can speak to the land very well. I'm not a forestry expert by any means, but the land that has trees on it is actually a very healthy forest. It has a lot of new and old growth on it, and I 100% agree and support that the no-cut buffer is the right way to go. Seek is 150 feet from the road. So when you drive up Seek into the main part, that is actually the road actually belongs to the town. It's an easement that Seek has over it, and there's rail yard parking on the left, and then as you continue into Seek, that's 150 feet from Yonge Street into when you start to see buildings. We also had no-cut buffer. You can't control what the environment does. Like a hurricane can come, as we've seen, and it destroyed a lot of that no-cut buffer that we also protected, but it will look so much better if that's maintained. And it is an incredibly healthy forest there with new growth, and there are old growth trees in there, spruce, hemlock, so on and so forth. So I'm really advocating for that, and it will look much better than cutting down and then trying to plant trees. Also, cutting trees and replanting is incredibly expensive. A little tree this big is hundreds of dollars. So really having a no buffer like area, I feel is critical and would really appease me personally. It will protect the integrity of the area and protect the integrity of the forest. In there, trees are carbon sinks, and we need to keep them. And it is critical for all development, but in particular this area where so many beautiful trees are already there. You cannot even put a dollar sign on what is there. That's how healthy and beautiful that forest is. I'd also like to point out, and I have brought it up before, that there is no internet in this part of Truro. Seek does not have internet. There are no communication lines, and I have been advocating, I've spoken to Mike Dolter about it, and if you're going to approve development, you need to consider that. There is no internet for several kilometers in that area. The residents of Truro in that zone do not have internet, okay? We all have Starlink or ExploreNet. So you cannot develop and put hundreds of people up there without internet. I have spoken to Bell and I have spoken to Eastlink, and they have no intention until developers start pushing it, because there's been no need to date. But I want to point that out. Okay, there's no communication lines in that area. It is an incredibly busy road. Cops make a fortune up there because people do not drive 50. And if you are going to develop and you want people to try to encourage to go into the park and also to be more environmentally conscious and have less parking, there should be sidewalks. I've also brought that up several times before with various people, that it's incredibly dangerous on Yonge Street. And if you're going to put hundreds, thousands of people up there, sidewalks should be considered. My last sort of comment's not really a question, but I really appreciate the support for SEEK and that people have been advocating for it. Is that parking on Yonge Street is very concerning for me. It has that big city feel to Yonge Street, and I really would like, I'm very concerned about the growth in the area, and I feel that to protect the integrity of SEEK and of the area is to really deter cars from being allowed to park on Yonge Street. I also think it's very dangerous. Bikes use that road, cars are driving up and down there all the time, and I don't know if it's part of this development plan, but if you're thinking about using Yonge Street as a backup parking, spend some time up there. It is incredibly dangerous. My last question, I guess, is to Jason, Mr. Fox. The purple zone on the map that has future or urban growth on it, in the east side, which I guess would be SEEK side, it has urban growth. Is that not zoned commercial, recreational, or some type of business that aligns with Victoria Park, or is that have the exact same zoning as their development?
Do you have the zoning map, Jacob? Yeah, so I'm not sure entirely what your question is, but the zoning of the property, Jacob, can you confirm what the zoning is on that on the opposite side of the street?
Right, so like this area down here.
Yeah, that's the zoning map right in front of us.
This is
actually.
the zoning
Yeah,
map.
so it is zoned urban growth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, I think, is there's an option to rezone to commercial recreation in that area. So if it's a use that's not permitted in the urban growth zone, that the option is there to rezone to commercial recreation. I think that we talked about that a long time ago. I think
Yeah.
might be what you're referring to.
Yeah, I just needed, it's not privy to, really important to this particular development agreement, but since the map was up and I'm here, I just wanted to ask the question. And so they weren't really questions, they were just comments. And also, where this seems to be a really sustainable development with very futuristic, ideas with solar panels and so on and so forth. I think trying to encourage people to bikes seems like a no-brainer, and you need to have sidewalks up there, or to get people safely into the park or into town. And that's not thinking. I just encourage people to spend more time on Yonge Street and see how the road is being utilized and the traffic that's up there. And just having all those people up there with sidewalks and all these kids walking to school without sidewalks, to me, it seems incredibly dangerous.
Thanks, Ms. Carney. I would love to think that we had the ability to put that in the plans. I think your comments are really important, and those of us who are counselors, I think, can bring those comments forward to council, because I don't think it's anything that we unfortunately can speak on. But my understanding of how we went through things this evening was discussing overflow cars. Though I raised the question of whether Yonge Street is a street on which you can park, it was really with a view that that would not be a good idea. I agree with you. I think that street is not suitable for parking. So I think the developer discussed the idea of that U-shaped street having parking on it because it will also be a public street, which I think would certainly be more suitable. Again, hopefully you won't need it. Hopefully it'll, that you'll have more than enough parking. But I think the option of parking on Yonge Street was not a good one. All right, we are really getting close to the end of this, I think, but I will let Councillor McGrath have the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be very quick on this. The concerns that Ms. Kearney raises are certainly valid and something that I, as a councillor, will take on to make sure that I bring up at the next council meeting, because I also remember that being determined, that urban growth on the east side of Yonge Street I thought that was also zoned for commercial recreation, things that are, complementary, I guess, to seek in that sort of commercial recreation. And also, the Yonge Street, I have biked up there. It can be dangerous. And that's something maybe Mr. McKinnon and I and Ms. Kearney can have a meeting to talk about what the active transportation plans are up that way, whether or not we can add sidewalks, mobility lanes, and things of that nature, but certainly not anything I think we need to get into tonight because it is not actually related to the application, but I would love to have that conversation in future. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes the comments from the committee. Is there anyone else from the gallery who wishes to speak? Okay, so we have a recommendation from staff, which we have revised slightly to add the requirements of a lighting study or lighting plan, as well as a landscape plan with an emphasis on tree retention. And possibly tree planting if required. Would anybody like to make a motion that the recommendation as amended be put forward? Okay, Councillor McGrath made the motion. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Delorier, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I will ask for you to vote on the motion then, please. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any contrary minded? Or sorry, I was an aye as well. Any contrary minded? No. Any abstentions? No. Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 199 Willow Street. I believe this is under Ms. Connolly, and probably will be a fairly brief discussion on this. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, this is the application for 199 Willow Street. This is a little bit different from what the committee normally sees, as it is a development agreement amendment application, which means there is a current development agreement on this property. The applicant would like to make a slight change. Subject site is 199 Willow, as mentioned. You can see it here on the site plan. Pardon me. I thought I could project. Okay, thank you, Director Fox. Subject lands are at 199 Willow, however, do not have direct frontage to that street. They're actually located on a right-of-way easement of the old railway, which you can see here. So that easement connects Willow Street to Callback Street, but as mentioned, there is no direct frontage, just this driveway from Willow Street. So lands are fairly large, at over 5,000 square meters in area, and it is within the regional service policy area, which allows multiple unit residential proposals with more than 18 units to be considered by development agreement. Also zoned regional service. Here are some photos of the site. So the photo on the left shows the view from Willow Street. So you can kind of see it's up a little bit of an elevation incline. You can't really see that existing building. This is the former institutional building, healthcare clinic associated with the hospital when it was there. That hospital, as we all know, has been demolished. This building is now a converted 14-unit residential building, part of a larger development with 3 other residential buildings, each with 6 units. Here we see some other views from internally on the site, on the old hospital parking area. So we just get a different view of the west side of the building. Let's see here. Sorry, pardon me, east side of the building. Here we see the building from below, from the CN rail, or the old right-of-way, the line. It's paved right-of-way, actually. So those three buildings are part of the subject site, again, each with 6 units. The building in question that we're talking about is in the background of that photo. We're recommending the standard process, which is the 4-step process. This would be the step 2 part of that process, where we have seen this. It went to PAC last month. It's now in front of PAC again. It will not be coming back for a 3rd meeting. It will be going now to council if PAC are in agreement with that. Here we see the actual proposal. So why this is in front of the committee today is because the applicant wants to change the roof. Currently, in the photos, as you can see, there is a flat roof on the building, which was there when it was built. It is now having some issues and leaking. So the owner would like to change it to a pitched roof, not replace the flat roof because they have issues. So here are some renderings showing what that potentially would look like. So we see the schedules, the Schedule B drawings that are attached to the existing development agreement are in the top left. They show the flat roof. The proposed renderings are on the top right, pitched roof. And then we see the existing building. So the way that the development agreement is structured, it clearly states the things that can be amended and like within our office, and the things that cannot be amended that must go before council. This is one of those things. So that's why we're reviewing this application today. Here we see, again, a kind of breakdown of what that looks like. Again, the schedule, the attached renderings are at the top, the proposed renderings are in the middle, the existing building is at the bottom. So again, nothing else with this development is changing except for that roof. The footprint is staying the same, the number of units is staying the same, there is no change to the parking or any of the landscaped elements, just the roof. The existing development, the document number is linked here with the section. So again, substantial matters shall relate to any matter not identified as insubstantial in this part. And it may be amended to provide for substantial matters according to the MGA. So this is one of those substantial matters. MGA gives the town council the ability to amend the agreement, and the policy is in the planning documents, which is RS 36, which allows it council to do so. Reviewed the proposal based on the applicable planning policies. Not a whole lot. Areas of potential issue and consideration included the height and potential visual impact or compatibility with the change in the roof. The existing height is approximately 21 feet. The total change with that pitched roof is expected to bring it up to under 30, so about 27.75 maybe feet tall. This is measured from grade to the top of the pitch. The as-of-right height limit in that RS zone is 86.6 feet. No anticipated issues with height here. As for visual impact and compatibility, it's not that visual. You can't see it. It's blocked by those trees when you're on Willow Street. It's blocked by those buildings when you're on the right-of-way, and it's not visible from Callback Street hardly at all. So there is no negative visual impact that is expected by staff. The pitched roof is actually expected to improve the residential look and have it fit in more contextually with the surrounding residential. And there is no proposed change to the use, which is residential. And so no compatibility issues are anticipated. Other departments have done their review. No concerns were noted. We have had 0 responses on this application to change that roof and amend this development agreement application. We will send out a notification to all the property owners within 150 meters prior to the public hearing, and we will update these survey results at that time. So if the committee agrees, or regardless, whatever recommendation the committee goes, it will go to council. It is expected to go to public hearing at the July 3rd special meeting. With the recommendation from council. Now, the recommendation may include any conditions or subject to the submission of additional information. Staff do not feel that there are any necessary conditions or the need for additional information at this time. And I would like to note that there is a special public hearing meeting that we are suggesting council hold, and it has been tentatively scheduled for July 3rd at 1 p.m. because we do have a number of public hearings. So it will not be held during the regular council meeting on July 7th. It will actually be held on the 3rd. Staff's recommendation is that council approve the application by Meach Holdings Limited to amend the existing development agreement, and the document number is there, which applies to lands at 199 Willow Street, and replace the attached Schedule B elevations. That concludes my report, and any questions are appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Connolly. Can I have a motion unless there's further discussion? Motion? Seconder? Deputy Mayor Thomas, would you like to speak on the application otherwise?
Yes. Just was wondering about, there's issues on this site, other than the leaky roof on the building. Can we look at figure 6, please, I believe, in the presentation? What it is, it's looking up the driveway. Yeah, well, that's it, but it's cut off on your rendering. You can see on the right-hand side, that driveway is in really, really poor shape. I drove up it, and it's in bad shape, and a lot of it's because of a lot of water leaving the site, and you can see it just on the right-hand side there. It's taken out a lot of pavement, et cetera. There's a lot of water leaving that site coming down that driveway to Willow Street. So makes me question the stormwater management plan. And plus, I don't know, when we open up a development agreement, can we comment on things such as driveways? It's in really poor shape. So that's one question. Maybe we don't have any say in this, but, stormwater management seems to be an issue at the site, and so does erosion of that driveway, et cetera, water pouring through there. So any comment on that?
I don't even believe there was a stormwater management plan as part of the original agreement. It was an existing building at the time. With the addition of the 3 other buildings that may have been through development agreement, I can't even recall. But the original proposal, I don't believe there was any inclusion of a stormwater management plan.
I don't remember seeing one.
Yeah, and as far as opening up the development agreement, I would say that if you're going to get into that, it would be a matter of if they're looking for increased density or some significant change to the site. In this case, what we're looking at is they're just changing the route.
Right.
Yeah.
I know the site does have problems, so I didn't know if this is an opportunity to address some of those problems, such as stormwater management. A difficult driveway. The landscaping on the site, if you look at the renderings that you've shown, to the townhouse kind of single ones, there's no the front of those, there's no landscaping really. It's just landscape with lawn. There's very little landscaping. The only landscaping that is there around the subject building was there when it was for commercial, or not commercial, but the use as a hospital auxiliary building. And so no landscaping has been done on the site. And so that it needs, the whole site needs improvement as far as I am concerned. And I know we're just talking about the roof, but to me, it's an opportunity to address some really obvious issues with the site that either weren't followed through with or they weren't written into the original development agreement. And then my final thing is also with the exterior cladding. I know you mentioned in the report that it's beyond us to really comment on that, but his renderings show change to the exterior cladding of the building, and I think I'm hoping that he's going to do that the owner will also change the cladding on the building somehow, because it looks very institutional at this present time, and it would really help the building look far more residential. So those are 3 comments I have, and I'm just looking for direction from the town planning in regards to those concerns.
Yeah, we can certainly pass those comments on to the developer. We can pass along the issue with the water and the drainage coming off of that site through the driveway onto Willow Street, certainly pass that along to them. We can certainly ask them to work with the town's urban forester about planting trees in the front of those properties, those 6-unit buildings. Absolutely, he loves to plant trees. You know him, I'm sure. So if they could work together on doing something there, that would be also a great thing. I don't think the cladding is part of the larger scope of this project. The designer who they hired, I think, just did that themselves. But we could certainly ask them if their intention is to change the cladding, that it would be appreciated by this committee.
Councillor Graham?
I'm just wondering if not that I disagree with anything Councillor Thomas has said, but I wonder if it's better handled by the Dangerous and Unsightly Committee rather than this one.
I guess all I would say is, and again, I haven't looked at this in a whole lot of detail, but I think all that we are probably able to do is address what's been provided to us, meaning if there wasn't a stormwater management plan when the development agreement was approved, I don't expect we would have the authority to require one now. It seems to me like a little bit of a getting in through the back door kind of analogy. And if it is an issue like Deputy Mayor Thomas mentioned, where the development agreement is not being abided by, that might be something that could certainly be dealt with. But again, I don't expect it would be by this committee. I would expect it would be by council or staff. So, and I haven't read the full development agreement, which was approved previously. So I don't really feel able to speak on it. But Deputy Mayor Thomas, you'd like to speak again?
Yeah, thank you. All I'm asking is, and it has been agreed to, that the developer would be made aware of these issues and leave it at that and see where it goes from there. I'm not asking that we make a formal recommendation. I'm asking that it seems as though, as you stated, that this development is not open to all those, and it's been said that, to anything but a change in the roof design. But however, it doesn't prevent me from asking that certain things be looked at on site.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The comments be passed along. Okay.
Correct.
Yep. Anything else, Councillor Graham, from you? Nope. Okay. I think we're at the point where we have a motion with that's been moved but not seconded. Councillor Graham, is there any further discussion before we proceed with the question regarding the roof? No? Okay. So we are approving the recommendation made by staff regarding the roof on the existing development agreement. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? Any abstentions? No, motion carried. Thank you. So now we will move on to the last project on the agenda, which is 448-450 Lower Truro Road, step 1 of the development agreement process. And the applicant is WM Fairs and Andrew Rogers. And this is under Senior Planner Fox's profile, so I will let him speak to the application.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is, as I mentioned, is an application for lands in the vicinity of 448-450 Lower Truro Road. It is an application by WM Fairs on behalf of, I believe it's Maka Investments Limited, so that's the company name. So just in terms of an overview of the application, the applicant wants to enter into a development agreement with the town to permit a multi-unit residential development and lands at 448-450 Lower Truro Road and a couple other properties in the area. Application was originally made back in October. Some initial conversations took place back then, and the intent to enter into the agreement was discussed at that time. Property is currently owned by Chris Clark. In terms of application status, be looking for the 5-step process for this one. So right now we're at step 1. So at this stage, we're really looking for a preliminary concept, rough idea of what the development's going to look like, which the applicant has provided. At this point, the committee is expected to provide feedback, initial feedback to the developer so that they may revise the proposal based on that feedback. And I also have prepared as part of this step an application briefing which has been circulated to PAC members. And then after that, there's actually 2 more steps at this committee. This would come back at the second Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and then there's for revisions and any kind of changes and additional public input, and then there's a 3rd step where there's a sort of final review of the proposal by this committee and a recommendation. I'll talk a little bit more about next steps at the end of this presentation. The subject lands consist of 5 properties actually situated at the intersection of Lower Truro Road, Wynn Road, and Salter Avenue. They include 15 Salter, which is, I believe, this property right here on the corner, 110 Wynn Road, which is this one, 114 Wynn Road, and then there's 448 and 450 Lower Truro Road, which would be these 2 properties here. The properties have a total area of around 6,200 square meters, or around 66,830 square feet, or about 1.5 acres. The lands have about 126 feet of frontage on McClure's Mills. There's about 134 feet of frontage on Lower Truro Road, 225 feet of frontage on Wynn Road, and another 387 feet of frontage on Salter Avenue. So it's a high-profile location on McClure's Mills Road, which is a busy arterial road and a key route into Truro from the Highway 102. So this is a view here of the subject lands looking from McClure's Mills. It's roughly across from the entrance to the parking lot on Lawton's, looking towards the subject property, looking west, showing the intersection of Lower Truro Road and McClure's Mills, and those are the existing homes at 448 and 450 Lower Truro Road, shown in the center of the screen. 4 of the 5 properties contain single detached dwellings, while there's a 5th property on the site that's vacant. This is a view of the subject lands looking east from Salter Avenue. 15 Salter is in the center of the photograph, so that would be included in this development proposal. Or the demolition of it, I should say, would be included in this development proposal. Properties are landscaped and feature large landscaped areas like lawn areas, as well as some mature trees. This is a view of the subject lands from Salter. 15 Salter is, actually, that's not 15 Salter, my apologies. The properties are generally flat with just a slight slope rising from about 22 meters at the intersection of Lower Truro Road to about 27 meters on Salter. So again, in terms of, this is the neighborhood overview again, so just in terms of context, so development in the immediate area is comprised primarily or predominantly of low-density residential uses, and these are primarily made up of 1 to 1.5 story single detached dwellings. There is a place of worship, it's the only really exception to that in the area, which is across Salter Avenue, which is the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's to the south across McClure's Mills Road. There's approximately 100 meters, or about 330 feet to the east, just across McClure's Brook, is the sort of commercial area along Willow Street. And then the Wade Road, Highway 102 commercial area, where Walmart in Kent and Colchester East Hants Health Center is about a little under 1/2 kilometer to the west. Residential areas to the south, and particularly to the west, are well-established and stable neighborhoods. Development in these neighborhoods over the past 20 years has been limited and includes the single-story townhouse-style units at 66 and 84 Wynn Road, and there's also the seniors' housing care at the Wynn Park Villa. So in terms of applicable policies and zoning, so this is an excerpt from the town's policy area map showing the properties in the urban, part of the properties are in the urban growth policy area, and then there's also some properties in the general residential policy area we can see here. The zoning map's a little bit different. You can see that it's urban corridor, and then there's general residential as well. The one property on Salter, 15 Salter, is general residential, while the balance of the site is urban corridor. So the properties are situated in both the urban growth and general residential policy areas. Policy UG 35 allows council to consider multi-unit residential proposals by development agreement in the urban growth policy area. And we also have policy IM11, which allows council to consider multi-unit residential proposals by development agreement in the general residential policy area, which normally wouldn't permit higher density residential uses, but where it abuts the urban growth policy area, policy IM11 allows council to consider it by development agreement. 15 Salter is zoned general residential, and as I mentioned, the remainder of the site zoned urban corridor, and the bulk of the development with the higher buildings is oriented more to Lower Truro Road and McClure's Mills, which would be the urban corridor portion of the property. So in terms of the development proposal, what's being proposed here is a multi-unit residential proposal consisting of 155 dwelling units in 3 buildings. There's a 2-story 8-unit building, a 5-story 39-unit building, and a 9-story 108-unit building. The 3 buildings surround a central parking area. So just to orient yourself, Lower Truro Road is along the right-hand side of the screen here. McClure's Mills would run along the bottom. Salter Avenue would as an odd street configuration, but it's to the west here, but it's also runs east-west here as well. But so there's a surface parking area proposed, which is to be accessed off of Salter Avenue. So there'd be the one driveway here, surface parking for 14 vehicles. The buildings also share a common below-grade parking garage, 2 levels of parking, which would be accessed the way it's shown here off of Wynn Road. And the proposal features parking for 190 vehicles in total, so 176 below grade, 190 in total, including the 14 surface parking stalls. The parking ratio would work out to be about 1.23 spaces per dwelling unit, and the standard bylaw parking requirement would be 197 spaces. So it features 190, so it's just 7 spaces short of what would normally be required in the bylaw. Proposal has 72 one-bedroom units and 83 two-bedroom units as proposed, and there's also 4,440 square feet of indoor amenity space proposed. Plus, there's also a 4,000 looks like square foot space shown here on the site plan in the central sort of common area for the development. So keep in mind that this is at a very conceptual stage. These are just conceptual renderings to give this committee an idea of sort of the massing of what's being proposed here. Not intended to illustrate, obviously, the details of the proposal at this point. So these are just meant to convey the general massing and scale of the proposal. So details such as exterior finish and architectural detailing have not been finalized at this time. So here we'll be looking at a view of the proposal from Lower Truro Road looking southeast. So this would be kind of like towards the hospital from Lower Truro Road. This is another view of the development proposal from Salter with 100 Wynn Road and 11 Salter actually 15 Salter in the foreground. I could be wrong about that civic address. It's 11 or 15, my apologies, in the foreground. You can see building 1, which is the 2-story 8-unit building is shown here, which is the one that has sort of scales down to match the neighborhood a little bit more. And then you have the higher buildings at the back away from the site towards, at the front of the site away from Salter, oriented more towards the intersection of McClure's Mills and Lower Truro Road. And this would be a view of the site looking north across McClure's Mill Road from the end of James Street. And this is a view of 21 Salter looking east. So this is the building at the end of sort of the corner where Salter makes the turn, and then building 3, which is the 9-story building, is shown in the background here. And this is basically from the front yard of 21 Salter looking east. So in terms of public participation and next steps here, so the proposed engagement process would be that we would post a sign on the property, so probably in June. Information posted on the town's website under active development applications following this meeting, and we would do a mail out to property owners within 150 meters of the subject lands. So in terms of next steps, so the next step would be the second Planning Advisory Committee meeting on June 30th, and that would include a report highlighting any changes made or proposed based on feedback from this meeting. The developer would be expected to have more detailed plans at that time. After that, we would have the third step in the process. Third PAC meeting at this point would likely be the end of August, including a staff report highlighting any changes as well as a full policy review, weighing the proposal, against the town's planning policies, and there'd be a recommendation from staff at that time typically, and then we would have likely looking at a public hearing. Step 4 would be in October, and all of those meetings are open to the public, and all of those meetings there's an opportunity for the public to attend the meetings and also to perhaps comment. It's usually at the discretion of this committee, but the residents would be invited to make comments at any of the planning advisory committee meetings, and they're illegally sort of, according to the Municipal Government Act, entitled to make a presentation or be heard at a public hearing, which would be of council, and that would be the one that would be at step 4 and held in October, if everything sort of follows a standard kind of timeline. And that concludes my presentation at this time.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have the developer here to answer questions today?
Yes, John Dibb, I believe is. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I only ever met you on Zoom, so yeah.
Would you like to come down? And sorry, I didn't catch your name. Okay.
Thank you for being here, and I didn't catch that name either. Mr. Zal, was it? Sala. Mr. Sala, thank you for being here tonight. One of the things that I am missing from this, I think, if, I don't know, Mr. Fox, if we can just flip back through some of the different viewpoints. I don't think we had anything from 17 Salter. I think we had one from 21. There's the 21 Salter, but there's another 17 Salter, which is going to be much closer to building 3, that we don't have a viewpoint. I'm a little concerned that that's going to be extremely close to that building 3 and the impacts to that homeowner for sure. I wonder if we could get more information on that. I also wonder
A
if
view from 17 Salters?
Yes, please. Also, do we have a shade study done yet? And if not, I would like to request one, because I think there may be some concerns there as well. Not just for number 17, but also I think 100 Wynn Road and 11 Salter, I think you said it was, Mr. Fox. Yeah. And then I don't know who answers this question. Mr. Fox, can we go to the one of the slides that shows sort of the zoning and the property lines, existing property lines? The one previous, slide 10, please. That one will do. So here on the sort of top left of the graphic, we see 100 Wynn Road and we see 11 Salter. We see that empty lot in between those two homes and building number 2. I don't know if we have that information on hand or if we can even mention publicly, but I'm just wondering who owns that land, what use it currently has, and what future use it may have, especially considering that it is currently acting as a bit of a buffer between building 2 and those two homes. That is information, if not available tonight, I would like for this committee to have in future. This is also a great graphic to have. So on Wynn Road at the top there, we see entrance to the underground parking. Now, Mr. Fox, I believe you said this was underground parking shared by both buildings. So, and maybe Mr. Sala, if you want to expand on that, what is the footprint of that parking going to look like? 'Cause I assume it's going to. And again, this is assumptions. I assume that footprint of that underground parking is going to be from the front of the first building to the rear of the second building, or sorry, building 2 and building 3, that it will cover that entire area. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
Okay, so
One
that's
entrance, one entrance covering both buildings, yes.
that is one of the things I like about this, because it means there's not a lot of extra traffic traveling on Salter, except maybe for building 1. So I get the parking for building 1, is that the surface parking, or would it also have access to the underground?
It would have access to the underground.
Okay, so all 3 of these buildings would have access to underground parking that has a driveway on Wynn Road.
Correct.
What then is the primary purpose of this surface parking then, I guess?
Visitor parking.
So visitor parking on the
Parking, yeah.
on the top. Okay. And my biggest concern, I'm going to direct this to our traffic authority if he would be willing to speak on this, is regarding just the traffic. We're looking at a lot of parking. I don't, where's the number here? I don't have to see it in front of me, but I know that there is a large number of parking spaces here. 197, thank you, Mr. Fox. 190 to 197 parking spots, somewhere in that vicinity. It's already very difficult trying to get off Lower Truro Road if you are turning left. And if I was living at one of those buildings, I would think I would end up going down Lower Truro Road, up Wade Road, and out, turning right at the controlled lights up there, rather than trying to even make the right hand here. Sorry, or turning left up there, instead of making the left down here. Heard a lot of concerns from residents about that concern, the traffic already on Lower Truro Road with how busy McClure's Mills is, as well as from James Street. The point I am trying to get to is, to our traffic authority, Mr. McKinnon, is I have have high concerns about the safety of those intersections. I would be reticent to add a traffic light or anything there, especially with the money we just spent on the roundabout just up the road, because I think a traffic light would hinder the traffic flow that we were able to improve with that roundabout. Is there room, sir, eventually to my question, is there room to put another sort of roundabout or something in there to help with the traffic flow and make that intersection safer?
There's probably physical room. I don't know if there's financial room for anybody to do that. They will definitely need to do a traffic impact study. This is a very busy area, very crucial area. You know, they have a general good layout. The driveway is as far away from intersection as possible, and like you say, the local street's only for visitor parking. So there's some good points to it, but there's a lot of units. I mean, the traffic impact study will probably show that the AM, PM peak is probably going to have almost a car a minute, which still really isn't that bad, but given it's such a busy area. And I've had different conversations with different people from the mill area in the last couple of years with suggestions on closing roads, opening roads in the general mill area to improve the traffic situation, you know, from before we built the roundabout to after it was completed. And I've had initial conversations with our traffic engineer on what sort of things would be plausible, and if something like this is to go ahead, if their traffic impact study gives some recommendations, or however this goes ahead, this might be the impetus for us to have some better conversations with the traffic engineer on what improvements can be made to the area. But I wouldn't want to hazard a guess right now what solutions we should jump to.
Right, well, as you noted, this is probably not directly tied to the development agreement, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I did want to start that conversation because if we go to, Mr. Fox, is there a slide that shows a little bit more of the satellite view a little bit further out, a little bit more of a bird's eye? That one will do nicely, thank you. On the south side of McClure's Mills Road there, we do see a sidewalk, which would be great for access to the rec, to the hospital. As noted, it's only a few hundred meters up the road. How are you getting to that sidewalk? I consider myself to be a fairly aggressive pedestrian, and I don't think that
That would be another component of the traffic impact study.
Yeah, these are the concerns
Not
I'm
as,
thinking about.
that is, I've mentioned this before on numerous occasions, council meetings, whatever else. McClure's Mills Road is not a road that I would promote putting a crosswalk on. No matter, you know, you can paint a line, but it doesn't make it safe to cross.
No.
So it's
Well,
not, so we would leave it to the traffic impact study.
I think just simple paint is not infrastructure, quite frankly. So a simple paint a crosswalk, you're right, would not be sufficient, but this is why we're looking at maybe a roundabout or traffic lights or something. But again, I feel like we're getting down a rabbit hole further away from the development agreement. But yes, the traffic impact study is going to be critical to what we are discussing here. Failing that, I would just reiterate my desire to see a shade study for impact to existing buildings. Honestly, I think I'd be a lot happier if those two homes were also part of the subject properties, but I am concerned about the impacts to all three of those there on Wynn Road, Salter Avenue. That is all my questions. Thank you very much.
Councillor Graham?
Several of the residents in the area are here, and they have some questions that they will address directly to you. So I won't steal their thunder on that. But what I would like to request is, I don't believe that in my time as a councillor, you've been before us, and I'm not, have you? Did I?
No, I haven't. It's
Okay,
the first
good.
time.
It has become a bit of a tradition, or not a tradition, but a practice, that developers have hosted open houses. In this case, because there has already been significant interest from residents in the area, I would like to ask that you do set up an open house to meet with the residents and to hear one-on-one from them about some of the concerns that they have. And I believe as part of our process, it's our planning department can help facilitate that. Is that accurate? Okay, so maybe you could work with them. I believe that it usually happens between step 2 and 3, but I don't think we're confined to that timeline, are we, Mr. Fox? No. So I would strongly encourage you to work with our planning department to set up an open house, and they can help with the logistics and notification of to the residents and all of that, because just in the 2 hours leading up to my attendance here tonight, I received several phone calls from the area. So thank you.
Noted. We will do that.
Thanks, Councillor Graham. Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Well, a couple of obvious things. And first of all is the traffic. It's already been mentioned, but I just want to chime in on the fact that getting off of Lower Truro Road onto McClure's Mills is even a greater challenge now that the traffic circle has gone in on Willow Street there. It's just constant traffic. Prior to that, there was a light there, if you're familiar with the area, and that at least stopped the traffic momentarily so someone could zip out. But now it's just constant and it's a challenge. And so it would be a challenge for anybody living in that area moving out onto McClure's Mills. That's one thing. The other thing is the 9, as of right, in an urban corridor, it's the height restriction is 4 stories. That's the restriction on height, as of right. Now, through a development agreement, anything and everything is possible. But myself, you know, we have provision for 8-story buildings, et cetera, in town, but they're the downtown core. They're not in the urban corridor zoning. And this is, and that doesn't mean that it has to be 4 stories, because it is a development agreement, but it's as of right. And it's as of right in my mind for a purpose, because that's what's more appropriate, not a 9-story building. So as it stands now, unless the neighborhood doesn't care, but I care, I don't want to see a 9-story building there. So I'm going to be absolutely upfront with you. I don't want to see a 9-story building on that corner. And I want to see that whole neighborhood respected in regards to the height of the building that's there. Willing to do some negotiation and movement on it, depending on what the area's consideration is, the people that live in the area, their consideration, how it affects the neighborhood, because these are all things that I have to be responsible for, to consider. And so I'm just letting you know that 9 stories is excessive for me. So this is stage 1. This is where I'm to give you my feeling about the overall project. And that's my feeling about the overall project.
Thank you. Any other committee members? I'll just chime in. I am open to seeing what you've provided today. I think it was helpful to see the massing as viewed from different properties, because sometimes the number of stories can appear excessive until you see it in context. I think the fact that you've brought the building as far away from the other homes as possible, and you've worked in other buildings that are closer in size to the others in the area is helpful. Not to say that, you know, similar to Deputy Mayor Thomas's comments, not to say that 9 stories is necessarily agreeable to me, but I just think it was helpful. And, you know, further to Councillor McGrath's comments, as we proceed and we can receive things like a shadow study, more detailed drawings where, you know, we're really seeing how this is going to fit in the neighborhood, I think that will really be the most important thing for me. I think the traffic, I'll leave that to the experts. I don't know that I need to comment too much on that, as long as it's not a huge issue. I think, you know, we need density and we need housing, so the traffic might be a adjustment, but hopefully it can be worked out. We probably have some people here who have spent a lot of time with us, and you might want to have a little time to speak. I'll just remind you this really is just the preliminary stages. So if you feel as though the committee hasn't addressed something that you wish to address, please ask for the microphone, introduce yourself, and provide your comments. Otherwise, if you're just here to sort of get a feel for things, and then, you know, you want to speak more either privately with a councillor or the staff, or attend the next meeting, you're welcome to do that. But if you would like to speak, just raise up your hand and Angela will bring the microphone.
Hi there. My name is Marianne Cullup, and we are owners of the townhouse development. I'm not sure if you can show it on your map, just a few doors down on Wynn Road. So we actually are 84 to 78 Wynn Road, A, B, C, and there's a 3 duplex and a quad. And then on 66 to 70 Wynn Road, there's 9 townhouse units there. We built them in 2013, the starting of the project. So after a lot of the residents heard about this particular development, they were just on the phone today and messaging me all through the day, and very concerned, particularly about the traffic coming onto the McClure's Mills Road with the roundabout. They're indicating that there's a slight improvement with the roundabout, but it has a long ways to go. And with the extra vehicle traffic that would be coming on, and it's going to be coming on to Wynn Road from this particular property, it would be probably substantial. And you've already talked about that, so I know that, and I just really wanted to reiterate that that's our main concern, and to the height of the buildings, particularly the 9 and the 5. So I just wanted to remind or to suggest that that was our main issues, and that I had indicated to our residents that we're going to keep our ear to the ground, and, you know, we don't want to impede development. We are developers ourselves and have been through this process ourselves, but we want to look out for our residents. And so I just wanted to pass on those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cullup. Would you like to speak today, or are you just here more to here to pay? Okay, thank you. I don't have anyone in the queue, so I'll just reiterate what the comments were today, and that was a shadow study, views from all the surrounding properties, traffic impact, the idea of having an open house, so, you know, a meeting where residents can speak directly with you, and of course the concern about the height. So if there's nothing more to add today, you can, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one request about the open house is make sure that members of this committee and members of Truro Town Council get a direct invitation, because I'm sure it'll be of interest to everybody here to know what is being presented to the public.
All right, thank you. So yes, if you can take those comments into consideration, we look forward to the next time you're before this committee.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is discussion about our next meeting, which was to be June 30th, but we have now decided it will be June 23rd to allow people to make their own extra long weekends if they so choose. So Monday, June 23rd, we'll see you here. Oh, that's not true. What? Is it June 23rd? June 23rd is a Monday. Okay, maybe we'll just leave that for now in terms of when the next meeting will be. And, okay, maybe we'll just leave that for now and discuss it and let everybody know. Okay, and other than that, if someone could move to adjourn, please. Thank you. Okay, meeting adjourned.